Independence Day coincided with exactly the moment that 6 months ago Russia made the invasion. If you look back, how would you assess the war at this moment, and what phase are we at now?
They didn't manage to make a breakthrough they were obviously planning. So neither within 3 or 5 days or within 1 or 2 weeks or months or whatever, they succeeded in capturing the major part of Ukraine. That was their ambition, to capture the major cities like Kyiv, like Kharkiv, Odessa, Mykolaiv. This is where they failed. At the same time, they managed to capture parts of Ukraine, part of the South Ukraine, the Kherson region, and part of the Zaporizhia region. They managed to make some very barbaric acts, like shelling the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, which is awful in the 21st century. When you shell at the nuclear power plants containing 6 reactors, 6, the biggest power plant in Europe. So now their offensive just stopped. They're in stalemate. At the same time, Ukrainian armed forces are ready to make a counter-offensive, are ready to make a counter-advances in the south of Ukraine, for instance. But in order to start this, and in order to succeed, we need weapons. Many weapons of heavy weapons. We need MLRS and artillery systems to start the counter-battery fight. And after that, we need armored vehicles and tanks to carry the manpower to the exact place and to start fighting with Russians. Yeah. So provided that the Western community, our Western allies, will provide us with enough amount of weapon, the flow has started already, but it's far from being enough. So provided we will have it in the near future, we will be able to start the counteroffensive by the end of the year, because you might understand that in the winter time it would be much more difficult to make these counteroffensives, and for them, for Russians, would be much more easier to make fortifications around the territories they captured for the time being.
So that's the goal, the counteroffensive in the south, to get
the goal
to
is
retake it before the winter?
The goal is to liberate every territory.
Of course, but the specific strategic, you have a lot of focus, of course, on the counteroffensive in the south near Kherson. How do you assess, is much progress being made at the moment?
Look, I'm not a military expert. You better ask our generals and military experts in that regard. The only thing I can say, the idea is to liberate the whole territory. Where do we start? Definitely, we will not reveal, the picture, in order for the enemy, to take use of it. But be sure, again, with the support of the Western community, we will manage, because we know how to fight. We know how to fight with definitely not the second strongest army in the world, but definitely not the weakest army in the world. Mm-hmm. We know how to fight the modern warfare. We know how to fight with Western weapons. You remember, in the beginning of war, they were saying maybe Ukrainian soldiers will not be capable or able to use the brand new equipment. Now, look, what Pentagon gave 12 out of 10 points for the Ukrainian armed forces for using the military weapon of Western origin, which means that Ukrainian armed forces are using it much better than probably some of the countries of NATO. So we know how to fight. We know how to fight against Russia within our history. It's 400 years of our fight against Russia. Maybe someone forgot that Ukrainians know how to fight. So we'll definitely win, but we'll need your support.
Yeah, I know you said you're not a military expert, but you say you want more weapons from the West. Do you have enough weapons now, especially in the south, to retake Kherson, or is it really much more needed?
Well, had we have enough weapons as of now, we would have already started the counteroffensive. Definitely not. Definitely currently not. And that's why my president is heavily working with each and every leader of the European Union, of the other countries, to get the exact weapon we need. We do not need just everything. No. Every Minister of Defense, every foreign defense attaché here in the embassies of the Western countries know exactly which items do we need, in what quantity, and how would we receive it. So be it lend-lease, be it for free, be it for purchase. And secondly, we never ask something which will undermine the defense capabilities of the countries. Definitely. but we ask for the surplus amounts, we ask for the weaponry which is sometimes maybe kept on storages, we asked for the weaponry which is maybe outdated for the country, but would be very of help for Ukraine.
Yeah. Let's talk about a place where this all started with Crimea, the annexation in 2014. This has been in the news a lot the last few weeks, a lot of explosions at Russian bases, ammunition depots. What can you say what's been happening there?
You know, the day before yesterday, just to mention this, we had the second summit of the Crimean Initiative, Crimean Platform. The initiative my president had exactly a year ago, 23rd of August. By that time in Kyiv, there were some 47 members of the international community. 15 of them were on the level of leaders. This time, this year, when we're having a war, which, right, you rightfully say, it started in the Crimea, there were 60 members of the Crimean Platform. Out of them, 40 leaders on the level of presidents and prime ministers and chancellors. And each and every of them was saying, Crimea is Ukraine, and we have to unite our efforts to liberate Crimea, and we have to unite our efforts as far as the human rights abuses are concerned, which are still going on in the Crimea. People are arrested, kept in the custody, their whereabouts is not known, etc. So Crimea is Ukraine. I can only repeat it after the leaders of the world community, everyone recognizes. And Crimea is Ukraine and will always be Ukraine. Definitely we will have to liberate it. But I have to mention that Ukraine, it is not the tactics and strategy of Ukraine fighting against civilians. Mm-hmm. This is the tactics of another country, of a country aggressor. But as far as the military infrastructure is concerned, as far as our aim to liberate all the territories of Ukraine, as of in the borders of 24th of August 1991, we will do everything possible.
Mm. Undoubtedly, at this moment, it will be very tough to retake Crimea. Still, these explosions, not just from a military point of view, what does it do morale for Ukrainians that they see this happening, that there's also fight behind the enemy lines going on?
Yes, it definitely raises the morale of Ukrainian soldiers, Ukrainian citizens, and everything which raises the morale brings us victory.
Yeah. We talked about help from the West. We saw Boris Johnson here yesterday. President Biden announced a $3 billion aid package. Is it a concern for you that there's going to be war fatigue in the West, and that you already see that the war, it's like slowly slipping from the headlines, and people in Europe are more concerned with high energy prices and the cost of living? Is that the big concern for the Ukrainian government?
You know, I'm listening about war concerns of war fatigue more from the journalists and experts than from the officials from European countries or the people of the European countries. You know, I would call it not a war fatigue, because, you know, if you're asking me about raising the gas prices, I have to remind you that the gas prices were raising long before the open aggression of Russia on 24th of February. You remember last year, Russia started to blackmail all the European community by raising the gas prices. And that's what's happening because European Union is still heavily dependent on Russian gas. And when my president was warning the European leaders, don't trust Russia, don't invest into Nord Stream 2, because this is not about economy, this is about geopolitics. No one listened to my president. What is happening now with Nord Stream 2? And what is happening now with Nord Stream 1? So that's why it's not about war fatigue, and definitely not about fatigue from Ukraine. You know, this is about moral again. There is a library. On the one plate you have the raising of prices, some discomfort for the citizens of, let's say, European countries. But on the other plate you have lives and deaths of Ukrainians every day and night. Because if you are not introducing further sanctions, Russians would trade with their gas, oil, and every euro and dollar they earn, they immediately spend to military infrastructure to produce more ballistic missiles, more tanks, more artillery, more aviation. So this is a moral choice, and everyone has to make it.
Yeah, but it's of course a strategy, a aim from Putin to create chaos and uncertainty with, you know, manipulating gas prices, oil prices. He's hoping, of course, that Europe will give in that sense.
Sure.
So that must be a threat.
Yes, that's why once and for all, Europe should be depriving itself from the dependence on Russian gas. Look, so there are positive tendencies in Europe what's going on. This 15% decrease of consuming Russian gas, which started from 1st of August, very good initiative. This initiative about having other countries supplying the gas, like Norway, like Qatar, very good initiative. So the tendency is positive, and it's high time for all the European countries to think once and for all we should be depriving from Russian oil, Russian gas. There are other sources in the world. There are many sources in the world. There is LNG, there is other sources, so let's do it. It might be painful, it will be painful, but once we will go on through this path, in the end, there will be total independence from the country aggressor.
Yeah. Of course, the high energy prices in Europe and the economic recession is nothing compared to the economic damage inflicted on your country, Ukraine. How are you coping? Because, you know, on all sides with high energy prices, we know the story about the wheat and the grain and the sunflower seeds, all of that. How is it possible for Ukraine to maintain a sense of economic stability, if that's possible at all?
We're surviving using our own resources, and you look at within the last 6 months, we were practically, having our own resources introduced, plus the support from the Western community. Because when you talk about the financial support, every month we need up to 6 billion euros just to support our payment balance, which means paying salaries for the soldiers which are fighting in the trenches somewhere in East Ukraine or South of Ukraine, social payments, etc. We are not receiving that amount which we need, but we are receiving something. That's why very important to have it timely and quickly, and that's why the macro-financial assistance from the European Union, €9 billion euros, should come very swiftly. At the same time, right, you manage this grain agreements. Very important for us was to export our grain, not only to earn money, but to provide the international community with the grain, to prevent this food security crisis. And that's why Ukraine is a responsible partner and will always be. So helpfully, luckily, with the support of United Nations Secretary General, President of Turkey, and some other leaders, we're having this working, and hope that within next month all the grain from the previous year will be exported. At the same time, we have a new crop already. We have a new harvest, so we will have also a big amount of grain to be exported. So yes, we will be doing this. We will be surviving as far as the economic dimension are concerned. Hopefully our partners will also understand and will render us additional financial support as well.
Yeah, we talked about military aid from the West. Is financial aid equally important?
Yes, there are 3 pillars, and we talked with you about all of them: the weapon, sanctions, and financial support. If those 3 pillars will be quite strong, Ukraine will definitely win.
And there's maybe another pillar. We see 2 flags behind you, European Union flag and the Ukrainian flag, both the same colors. You became officially a member, a candidate member this summer. How important was that moment for Ukraine?
That was really important and had a very huge symbolic meaning, because each and every citizen of Ukraine, be it a soldier, be it a mother with her children hiding somewhere in the safe places under the Russian missiles, rockets, or even be it citizens who had to escape from Ukraine to European countries, but each and every one of them want to see Ukraine in the European future rather in the Soviet past, in the European Union rather in the USSR 2.0. So that was a huge symbolic meaning. That was a huge boost for further economic reforms, because look, we received 7 recommendations. All of them are measurable, bearable. We will fulfill them by the end of this year. That's what my president demands. And after that, we do hope that the next stage will start, which is about accession negotiations to enter the European Union. We understand the path will be difficult, but we are ready to go in it with a quick speed. Look, we filled in the questionnaire just within 1 month. Usually took 1 year for our predecessors, for already members of the EU. So with this speed, we will undergo all the next stages, and we hope for the continuous support of not only the European Commission, but of the member states. We really enjoy the support of each and every 27 member of the European Union, each and every leader. My president talked to many times, including the 2 days preceding the decision on 23rd. He had 26 out of 27, conversations with the leaders, and each and every one of them said, yes, the progress is very good. So we evaluate the progress which Ukraine made. It's still a long path to go, but we give you this status. You are officially candidate for EU. You are officially part of our family. And this is very important for us to feel we belong to European family.
Yeah, as you say, the road to membership is long and difficult, and you're probably aware that in the recent years there would be doubts in some European countries about whether Ukraine should be a member, not the least in my own country. Undoubtedly, you know that. Does it give you hope, though? Do you see a shift, though, since, Holland was one of those countries that had doubts, but still they agreed, that Ukraine should be a candidate member now. Does that give you hope that this is all very possible?
Yes, you know why I'm optimistic. You always say in the European Union about the unity, or necessity to have a unity. I think this time, on the 23rd of June, Ukraine united all the European Union. Ukraine united your Prime Minister, Prime Minister of Hungary, Chancellor of Germany, President of France, Prime Minister of Italy. Each and every of them was absolutely sure Ukraine should be given this chance. And yes, we saw the position of leaders changing, because on 28th of February, when my president summoned an application to membership to the EU, not even half of the leaders, I think, were sure it will happen. And many of them were talking to my president and were telling to my president, look, Mr. President, maybe this time we will not take this candidacy, maybe pre-candidacy or under candidacy or no candidacy at all, something intermediate. My president was saying, look, in this case, better not to give Ukraine, better to give Ukraine nothing than to give Ukraine half decision. And look, within these 4 months, we've made a huge job. We are ready and capable to make our home task, even in times of war. But imagine what happens when we will win the war, how the speed will go. So I'm sure that there will be a unanimous decision on the further steps. I'm sure there will be unity in the European Union vis-a-vis Ukraine, because Ukraine is a European country. Look, in each and every of your country, in the Netherlands, in The Hague, you see many Ukrainians, you see many Ukrainian flags. You see those Ukrainians. They are knowledgeable, they are ready to learn, they master your language, they want to work, they are already Europeans. And that's why it was absolutely logical just to have an official recognition of this.
Yeah, it's my last question. European Union was born out of the biggest war in the history of Europe. Do you think that this war, this is the biggest war in Europe since the Second World War, that this reminds us why we do exist as a union, why we do have this family of European countries that cooperate together?
Absolutely. The World War II was also about uniting the civilized countries into the family. That's what's happening now. I think everyone should understand that among many mistakes Putin has made, one of the biggest mistakes he made, he underestimated the level of unity of European nations around Ukraine, because this is war in Ukraine, but this is at the same time war against Europe, war of aggressor against the whole Europe. You understand we defend you. You very well understand this. We understand we have to defend. We are bordering Russia. We are at the forefront and we are ready to do this. But at the same time we understand that we belong to Europe and you recognize that we are Europeans. So having this unity, we will definitely win.
Thank you so much.